next one is the next characteristic of population is mortality. It is also called as death rate. Okay, what does death rate means? It is the rate of death among the individuals of a particular population, right? Like the growth of the population, like the natality rate of the population, this mortality rate is also dynamic. It can also be taken into consideration when we are studying about the basic structure or characteristics of a population. Now, when we come to this mortality, as we said, death rate, the number of population which are dying in a particular area. Now, this mortality can be studied under two definitions, that is called as ecological density, and second one is called as specific mortality. Ecological mortality and another one is specific mortality. Right. Now, as we studied in natality, ecological and specific, here also you have two concepts, ecological mortality and specific mortality. Now, when we come to ecological mortality, it refers to the total actual loss of individuals in a particular population. Means out of the total population, how much number of individuals are dead, then that is called as ecological mortality, actual loss. Okay. Now what is this here? Specific mortality, it is nothing but the least number of death in a population, the least loss of individuals in a population, right? So, this is called as the least loss of individuals in a particular population, and ecological mortality is nothing but actual loss of individual in a population. Now, this least loss of individuals in a ideal conditions whichever is there in a particular population. Now, here what does it mean here? For example, in a population, every individual, like for example, if you take an example of a human being from birth to his death, he has certain period of longevity or it has certain period of age to survive, right? So, on the basis of that, we can say that there is a least loss of individual, there is a least rate of death in a particular population, because every individual as an individual will have the age longevity, and the death of that particular individual will be occurring maximum because of the aging of that particular individual. So, the death of a particular organism, if it is occurring because of the aging process, due to aging. Okay. Now, this type of mortality can be calculated, or this type of mortality where the death of an organism is maximum because of the aging of that particular organism, and the longevity has more control, the more the longevity, the less the death rate of a population is occurring. So, this mortality or death rate can be calculated by a formula here. Death rate is equal to, it is represented by a letter small d. It is nothing but number of deaths per unit area unit time by average population. Right. The formula here is the death rate is represented by small letter d, and it is equal to the ratio of number of deaths per unit time by the average population. What does it mean? In an average population, the death rate is nothing but the number of people dead in a given average population, right? Now, when we come to mortality, we can also say that mortality is different for different age group people. Like for example, if I am saying there are 100 seedlings I am sowing, right? Out of 100 seedlings, there are possibilities that all the 100 seedlings cannot be used or cannot be survived, right? Of the 100 seedlings, there is a possibility that we grow more than 100 seedlings. The sowing of the seed is more, the seeds which we use is more than 100, because during the process of its growth, there are very basic criteria where we see that the crushing of the seedlings or death of seedlings is occurring. So, what is that here? One, either plants or other animals may eat that seedlings, or those seedlings may die before reaching the reproductive phase or pre-reproductive phase, or some grazing animals may eat it, right? Some seeds may get dried, or because of natural calamities the seeds may get floated away. So instead of, though there are seeds more than, so when we are sowing a seed, more than 100 number of seeds are sown, so that in spite of all the calamities it come across its lifespan, either by eaten up by grazing animals, or some plants flooded away by natural calamities, or the seeds are not reaching the pre-reproductive phase also. So all that also, still we see that there are few seeds left over in spite of lot of causes left over, and these few seeds are helpful for continuity of the growth into a particular plant, right. So now here, this death of a particular seed which is left over from all the overcoming all the natural calamities will be also showing a phenomena or natural hazards, or those are called as a phenomena called as senescence. Okay. And this senescence may also help, may be also a phenomena which may lead to the death rate of a particular seed plants. Now this mortality is affected by n number of this mortality rate is also affected by n number of factors, like it may be affected between the because of the competition between the different races, it is also because of the predation which is existing in the races, and it is also because of the environment of that particular area also may affect the death rate of particular individuals in a particular population. Now here, the mortality or the density of the mortality increases with the increase in the natality rate. If there is a low density, population, if there is a population of low density, then we say that the natality increases, natality exceeds mortality. Okay. If it is a high population density, if a high density population, we can say that mortality exceeds natality, right. There are two criteria here. If there is a natality exceeds the mortality, if the population density is low, if there is low density of population. Next, the mortality may exceeds the natality when there is the high density population occurring. So these are the basic criteria, and there are also criteria where we can say both the natality and mortality are at neutral phase, then that is called as stationary population, stationary stage, where the natality is equal to mortality, where the death rate as well as the population, when the population growth birth rate is equal to the death rate, then those are called as stationary population or stationary stage. So there are three stages here. On the basis of mortality, if there is a low density population, mortality will be less, and if it is high density population, the mortality will be more than the natality. So there is one more called as stationary growth or stationary population, where the natality is equal to that of the mortality. This mortality rate can be also taken with this formula, can also be calculated with this formula. This is a birth minus a death ratio, the ratio between a number of births minus death ratio divided by births by death into 100 in a given population. So this is actually called as vital index. So the vital index is used to indicate the mortality and natality rate of the particular population. Now here we are also coming for a population, when we are talking in terms of mortality, in a population to know, it is not only always about the death ratio or the birth ratio, it is also about the number of survivors. Number of people survived in the due course of time. So that process of the number of survivors is more important in a population. The time or that is called as the phenomena where we count the number of survivors in a particular population is called as life expectancy. And this mortality is expressed in terms of life expectancy with the formula called as EX. So, when we are taking into mortality, it does not mean only the number of deaths occurring in a population. It also means out of 100 population, number of this percentage is having natality rate, number of these are dead. And so what does it, in between these two comes the number of people still surviving in that population. So this mortality is expressed in terms of life expectancy, means that still the time still left over for a particular individual to survive. So how much time is left over for him so that he is still surviving. So that is called as life expectancy. Mortality is expressed in terms of a letter called as EX, right. Now this is about mortality, right. Now next one we are supposed to study here, as we said a word survivor, we are supposed to study about survivorship curves. Now here we will talk about three phases here. What is survivorship curves? Basically when a child is born from a embryonic stage to the last day of his life, he is coming across, though it is a plant, animal or a human being or any life or total lifespan of an individual comes across or goes through a three-phasic life cycle. First one is called as pre-reproductive phase. It is also called as juvenile stage. Pre-reproductive phase, reproductive phase, and post-reproductive phase. Okay. Now here when we are talking about survivorship curves, we will just talk in general about a particular total lifespan, in particular in individual, a total lifespan comes across three phases, that is pre-reproductive, reproductive and post-reproductive stage. Pre-reproductive stage means juvenile stage, even before it is just started, initial stages of its birth. Next, reproductive stage is called as mature stage, and the third stage is called as the post-reproductive stages where aging will occur. Okay. Now survivorship curves is nothing but the curves or the percentage of survivor differs from age to age in different individuals. We can say that the survivor percentage of survivor is different in pre-reproductive stage and different in reproductive stage and very less in post-reproductive stage, means when it is a newly born baby, when it is in adult stage and when it is in the old age, right. So depending upon every phase. Now there are some individuals which do not even reach the pre-reproductive phase. There is the populations where the growth of the mortality rate is more and they do not even reach the pre-reproductive phase. The rate of death is more in the juvenile stage. The percentage of survivor of individual in a population is recorded more in the reproductive phase. It is an adult age where the individuals are shown to survive more, and in post-reproductive phase, which is an old age phase, here the old age phase the individuals are seems to show their survivor to a less percentage. Here the mortality is more. So this is because due to the aging process. So here different age groups, this reproductive phase, this survivorship can be said that the stable population is seen at the reproductive phase of the life cycle of an individual. Now here this can be shown by some curves, those are called as survivorship curves, where we take the percentage of survival here, consideration of percentage of survival of a particular individual in a population. Now what is percentage of survivals here? Number of survivals means how many individuals are living by number of original population into 100. So there can be an increase in some populations, there can be an increase in the death rate here there can be an increase in the death rate here or here. So, basically there is a population where, a stable population where more natality rates, more survival percentage is seen in the reproductive phase or adult phase. Here, because of some natural calamities or because of some unnecessary requirements, nutritional growth is not there, or so such factors, there is the chances that the individual doesn't even reach the pre-reproductive phase, and because of aging, because of other biological factors also, the death rate is more in the post-reproductive phase. But in reproductive phase, as they are in a stable situation in an adulthood, they have the capacity of more resistance, the growth or the survivorship of the individual is more. So, when we say this particular population is having more survivors in reproductive phase, means that particular population is having more young people in that area. If they say there are more survivor of individuals is there in that reproductive phase only, because it means that particular population will neither have the small children nor the old people. The population is more because of the more adult people or young people in that particular population. So, this can be calculated percentage by number of survivals by number of original populations into population into 100. This is about survivalship or survivorship curves.